Welcome everybody, and thank you for taking time on your Tuesday night to come here and listen to our three candidates vying for our 2 seats on the Board of Selectmen. I'd like to thank the Daily News, Richard Lodge, and Jen Solis, where's Jen? Hi, Jen. For working and helping us bring this event here. And good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. This is really, that is the nicest stool I've ever had at any kind of forum. I may take this home with me. This is great. Well, thank you all for coming. This is a good opportunity, I think, for everybody in the town of Newbury, whether you're here or on cable this week, to learn some things about the 3 candidates for the Board of Selectmen. I'm glad, representing the Daily News, I have a chance to do this. I will remind you, I have a day job. I do not normally moderate candidates' events, so we'll see how this goes. We did, I believe, send out some sort of guidelines in terms of time and order of things. I would ask you, and I should do it myself, to just turn the ringer off on your phone. I don't mind if you tweet this out or to surf the web or whatever during the forum, but and I'm told that this will be rebroadcast several times on Channel 9 this week, and it will be on YouTube on the town's website, so you could also see it. And thanks to Mary Leary, who's a timekeeper, I believe, and Alicia Greco, who called me to convince me we should do this. It took 3 months for me to come around, but no, a couple weeks ago actually we did. Just to give you sort of the ground rules, the candidates did draw numbers. Each candidate will get a 3-minute opening statement. I'm going to ask questions after that to the candidates in alphabetical order to start with, and then just kind of rotate it as we go along. You get 2 minutes to answer a question. And then toward the end of the forum, if I'm watching the time, you guys will get a chance to ask a question to either of the other 2 candidates, so something you might be thinking about. And then that person would get 90 seconds to answer. And as I said at the end, you'll get 2-minute closings. And because of the numbers we drew, J.R. Colby, who's closest to me here on my left, is first, and Damon Jesperson in the middle is second, and Vincent Russo all the way on the right is third. So we'll start this way, and then at the end we'll go that way. If that makes sense. So I believe we start with an opening statement by J.R. Colby. Okay.
Thanks for coming tonight, everybody. My name's J.R. Colby. I'm 36. I'm a farmer. I'm a lifelong resident in the town. I have a 9-year-old son. He's in Newbury schools. I have my business here, and I'm fully invested in making Newbury the best it can be for everybody. Some of the accomplishments the board's been able to accomplish since I've been on. We've held people accountable even when it's politically difficult. That's something that's been hard for our town leaders in the past. You know, with relations, a small town, friendships, it can be difficult to hold people accountable even when you don't want to. We have done that, and I'm proud of that. We've repaved over 30 miles of roads, and part of that's to do with good management and proper use of Chapter 90 funds. We've addressed a lot of issues in the last 2 years that have been kicked down the road. Police station, the town hall, and the field house at Manor Field. All these projects installed at some point along the way, some to the tune of 13 years. And we've managed to start finding resolutions to these problems in the last 2 years. I'm proud of that. Appointments to boards and committees. I made it a point to appoint people to boards and committees based on their skills and not on political connections or past service. Good management starts from the top down, right from the administrator, our department heads, our boards and committees. We've adopted best management practices, keeping minimum amounts of money in some of our accounts, forecasting for vehicle and equipment repairs and replacements, repairs to buildings down the road before we're faced with an immediate problem. It can save us money from short-term borrowing when we have funds in place to tackle these issues. We've adopted an open meeting policy. All board and committee meetings and agendas are posted online in a timely fashion. And that didn't always happen here. I'm very proud of that. I'd like to thank Dave Mountain for starting that, and it's something I've been able to help finish, and I'm proud of that. I show up prepared for meetings. I make it a point to review materials. I do my homework. There's nothing worse than showing up to a meeting and making a shotgun decision on something that you're not familiar with. And I pride myself on being prepared for meetings and reviewing all materials thoroughly, fact-finding. I'm the first selectman to obtain regular contributions from Governor Dummer Academy. They've been very generous in the past, and they've donated vehicles and things of the sort. We have now entered a regular yearly agreement with Governor Dummer where they're making a regular contribution. And I'm proud that I've been able to open up the lines of communication there and accomplish that. I've worked hard to find middle ground between board members and residents. A lot of people don't agree in this town. It's a good place, and it can be a funny place. I've worked real hard to bring boards, committees together with the residents to find middle ground solutions. And I am also proud of that. Sometimes good leadership includes admitting you're wrong, which I did change my course on the Town Hall and Police project. But to me, if you can't admit you're wrong, what kind of leader are you? When new facts come about, new ideas, there's no sense just staying the course because that's the road you were going down. If you're beating the drum and you're halfway across the football field and you realize you're playing the tune wrong, it doesn't make sense to keep playing it wrong.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, I should have said it from the outset. The timekeeper will start the time, but then at the 30-second mark, we'll just flash our 30 seconds left, and then time's up at that time of the end of it. So we appreciate it. There are some more chairs up here for you folks. If you want to, you can move up. Front row seats. It's great. Okay. Next is Damon Jesperson.
Hello, Damon Jesperson. I've lived in Byfield my whole life. It's been a pleasure serving as a selectman for the last 3 years. It's a little challenging to follow JR since we've served together, and I think we're both proud of the work that we've been doing. And so I don't want to repeat everything that he said. One of the things that I've tried very hard to do is bring more communication between the community and the selectmen into play. I started a coffee hour which runs through the year so that people can meet with the selectmen, express any ideas, concerns that they have. Been working to keep the master plan in view as we make selections and decisions. I have a lot of problem-solving experience. I started this so I could give back to my community, and I think I've been doing that, and I hope to continue to do that as we move forward. We have a few huge issues that are coming up: how we integrate fire, solving the trash on Center Island, and coming up with a permanent solution out on the island. And I think being open and flexible to new ideas is key in moving those things forward. I always come prepared to meetings. I've also started the work of getting an RFP out for solar in town because I want to generate revenues that are not just our taxes, because we don't have a lot of business growth opportunity in town. So that means any additional programs that we hope to do either are on the taxpayer back or have to be self-sustaining. If we can generate some revenues, whether that's from parking on the island, from solar, or other revenue streams, it means it's one less burden for the town and taxpayers to take care of. I've served on the MVC, the OPM Selection Committee, and the District Communication Committee. I've gotten the schools to commit to providing volunteers during annual town meetings to provide daycare for children so that young parents with children can attend the meetings and we can get more participation in our local government. Because I think the more people who are involved, the more people who show up, the better we can serve the community. We've also moved the building project forward. He's got me nervous over there. I heard her moving. One of the other big things that I did is after the rejection of the first plan, I went to my state reps, our state reps, yep, there we are, our federal reps, to try and find a way to fund our building project that would be less expensive for the residents. I was hoping we could find grant money because there are safety-related issues. What I could find was a long-term loan at a very low fixed rate. And so I was able to, through working with our state and national reps, get our annual contribution to our new police department lowered by a significant amount. Also been working. I guess that's that.
Sorry, Dad.
And next with an opening statement is Vincent Russo.
Hi, good evening. I'm Vincent Russo. Happy you all could come. And special thanks to Mary Leary and Mr. Lodge for participating in the leadership format. I was a selectman here a number of years ago in 2004, and everybody's been asking me why you dare try and get back into it? What motivated you? Well, I didn't want to leave when I did leave. I had served 2 full terms, the first 5 years as the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. But the reason why I wasn't the chairman in the 6th year was that the Joint Commission had me traveling twice a week, 2 weeks. So in other words, I was away 14 days out of every month. So I just couldn't run again for selection. So I eked out that last, and I gave up the chair as well. I retired from the Joint Commission now. It's been since September, and I wasn't going to run for office. As a matter of fact, as I said this morning, I bought a car from Damon's father so that I could travel around the country with my wife. 54 years, and we have 15 grandchildren that are dispersed across 4 different states. And the furthest west is in Milwaukee. We got them in Vermont, Maine, and Milwaukee. So then I started to read about the problem with the project for the public safety building and how much money it was going to be. And it reminded me of that when I started as a selectman in 2004, which wasn't all that long ago. We were on the verge of bankruptcy. We weren't able to make our Triton assessments payments on time. Joan Wyburn used to come to the town hall and berate me for not making timely payments. We had to start looking pretty hard and fast as to what was going on. Why were we not making enough money to meet our obligations? It required a lot of work and diligence. We only had 3 selectmen in those days, and the 3 of us worked hard to find out what to do. Chuck Baer got hot on selling the town land, and you know he still does that. And the other efforts we made was negotiating. So it ended up that I actually authored the town act called an act establishing a selectman administrative form of government for the town of Newbury. I wrote that. Town council corrected me, I corrected him. We passed the paper back and forth multiple times until we published that document. And I heard this morning from both selectmen that they really love the town administrator form of government. And it's been working out very well because everybody's rowing in the right direction. There's good communication and coordination. It did save the town from financial disaster.
Thank you, Dr. First question to JR. The police town hall building project, we'll go right into that, was controversial. What did you learn from the ups and downs of the process that will inform how you lead the community as a selectman going forward?
The biggest thing I learned about that is that if you can find a middle ground where everybody's a little bit unhappy, you're probably in the right place. We tried twice to pass the all-in-one project. And from a 50-year standpoint, was it the smartest financial thing to do? Absolutely. What I discovered was the appetite for that doesn't exist in this town. So I said to myself, what are we going to do? We need to make forward progress in a meaningful way, but we're not going to get the all-in-one building. So that's when I decided to push for the 6.5 project, hoping enough people would get on board that we could pass it. And I was so happy when we did. It's kind of the, if you can just consider it the best worlds, it's the best of both worlds. We're tackling 2 projects in one, but we're also phasing it for the people that were more comfortable with that. So what that taught me is a middle ground approach can work. And if you can find that place where everyone can accept it, it might not be exactly what they want, but the majority can accept it. It seems to be a good way to go.
Damon Jesperson, same question.
The project, I think
Excuse me, can you all speak up?
yes. I think the difficulty with the project showed me that communication is a huge issue, and changing what we're doing and what we're about is very challenging. So we changed from police town hall plan within months of the town meeting where we first brought it, and made it a police, fire, and town hall plan. And I think the change in the plan and the change in the price tag was very detrimental to our ability to move it forward. Everyone was aware of the issues that the police had been facing. We'd had a lot of communication around that. The shift to a more comprehensive plan, I think, was detrimental to our ability to communicate broadly and widely what was needed and why it was needed when it was needed. So what I've learned from that is just how much time and energy goes into communicating an idea, whether it's a good, bad, or indifferent idea. It still takes a lot of time to generate support, to generate enough feedback so that we know we're headed in the right direction, and to move things forward. It's always about getting input from everyone to get a project like this to the finish line.
Thank you. Same question to Vincent Russo.
Okay. I saw the prices and I saw the different newspaper articles covering the different versions of this combination project. And I had a completely different opinion. Irrelevant, the price wasn't my issue. My issue was the root cause of the price. It was just too much. Town hall is a public place. Town hall is open to the public. Town hall is a place where you go in, and in the original town hall, where we hopefully get back to, you have that open food court type of venture with all the desks open, and cross communication is very easy. You meet people, friendly people, you have conversations. A police station is just the opposite. A police station is a place where the work is confidential. It's actually protected. People's reputations are at stake. You can see somebody in handcuffs, and you may draw the wrong conclusion, and you could ruin somebody's reputation, and also it's a violation of their privacy. So police stations should never be in a town hall, if at all possible, or sharing elevators and stairways. I didn't think that was a good idea at all. I thought that we should go back to the town motto. The town motto is just enough. That means not extravagant. It's been the motto for hundreds of years. 30 seconds. Time goes by fast when you're doing the talking, you know. So I was very happy to see it finally come down to a standalone police station and modifications to town hall. And 2 separate locations so that it's more affordable, it's actually more practical. And this is a small town. And I think most of the people who live here do not intend or wish it to become another big city like Newburyport. They like it being a small town, and that's what we want to preserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question to Damon Jesperson. We started in the middle. What's the most important specific issue facing the town in the next 3 years, and why?
I think the most important issue facing the town in the next 3 years is the changing relationship we have with fire. For years and years, we've had 2 volunteer fire companies who have served us extremely well. However, as the laws in the state change and we adjust to those changes, we've created a Newbury Fire Department, and the relationship between the Newbury Fire and the volunteer companies has been fraught with difficulty, often based on a sort of this is how we've always done it, versus a need to move things forward to protect both the companies and the liability of the town. I feel as we move forward, we have started to get to a much healthier place in these relationships between the entities. That will also, and one of the other issues that's involved in that is that we have bought the Morgan Ave Fire property, which is the site for the new police station. But it also has the old fire station on it, which is derelict in a number of ways, and we're going to have to resolve whether or not we need a new building there. We can patch the building that's there. We've started the engineering to look at what that looks like so we can plan appropriately for whatever goes on that site. So I think we have to protect our history and the great service that has been done by the fire companies to the town as we move forward into a new relationship with them, and hopefully building that is safe for everyone to work in down there.
Same question, what's the most important specific issue facing the town in the next 3 years and why?
I would agree that it's the fire department issues, and I agree with everything that Damon said. And in addition, we have an additional critical problem right now that's starting this summer. All the fire hydrants on Plum Island are going to be replaced. It's a 2.5-year project. So for 2.5 years, really, we have unreliable fire hydrants on Plum Island as they roll through the island replacing fire hydrants. Therefore, we need a small pumper truck that will be able to negotiate the narrow streets of Plum Island if there's a fire. And the best place for that pumper truck to be would be on Plum Island. And wherever there's a spot for it, we need to have, and they have to be enclosed because the tires wear out if the sun's beating on them all the time. So there is a building that the federal government owns. It used to be the old headquarters of the refuge, and perhaps we can even use that building. It's just empty. Nothing's being done with it. The building's large enough to accommodate a small pumper truck that would be dedicated to Plum Island. So that's an additional problem that needs to be addressed. And it's a problem between Newbury and Newburyport, because obviously Newburyport has some homes out there as well.
Thank you. J.R. Colby, same question.
I would agree with fire being probably our most pressing issue to address, but I don't think it's so much with the equipment, it's with staffing. At town meeting, it was controversial, the amount of money we had to raise to run the fire department. They were very close to going under. It was either take the fire department on or let them perish and not have proper fire coverage. Part of the funding was to staff additional shift coverage nights and weekends. I'm part of the, what you call the pickup truck crowd, which is getting smaller and smaller every year in town. What I call the pickup truck crowd, I call firefighters, the type of people that have jobs that they can throw the tools down and run to a call. As the years have gone on and Newbury's become more of an affluent community, a lot of the pickup truck crowd has moved outside of town as far as, Salisbury and places like that. So it takes a while for these guys to respond, and by adequately compensating them, we can ensure that we have a fire truck with 3 or 4 firefighters on it, instead of one guy hoping that, waiting by the truck, hoping some other folks show up, or someone racing here from Salisbury wondering if they're even going to make the truck by the time it leaves. And to me, the biggest issue is making sure we have responders that are ready to respond. That is much more important than equipment.
Thank you. What we have is a mix of questions sort of generated by the reporting staff, and also a number of questions that were submitted by folks in Newbury. So just put them out there.
Richard, what's the timing? 2 minutes for the answer?
2 minutes on this, yeah. This goes to Vincent Russo. Do you support efforts to continue to reinstate the previously reduced public safety programs as outlined by Town Administrator Tracy Blaze in her budget presentation for FY 2018? Why or why not?
Yes, because essentially wants to put it back the way it was when I was a selectman, and I was instrumental, along with my colleagues on the Board of Selectmen, in making those changes and the pay accommodations. The police chief that we appointed is still the current police chief. The town planner that my Board of Selectmen appointed is still your town planner. The building inspector that your Board of Selectmen hired that many years ago is still your building inspector. So we did a good job vetting candidates for those different positions, and we believe that the police chief. And the only problem still is the fire department. Obviously, there's always been a problem. The Board of Fire Engineers have been pulling their hair out for years, trying to get Pro 2 and Pro 1 on the same page and collaborate. We came close. For a while, we had one fire chief for both companies. But then retirement happened. Things changed again. I wasn't in office, and I'm not really privy to all the permutations of what occurred. So I am in favor of it, yes.
Okay, J.R. Colby, same question.
I'm in favor of returning to levels previous to cuts. If we can get back to 13 full-time offices in town, I look at that as a positive. And that will also allow us to take offices off of the dispatch bench and allow us to have citizen dispatchers, which will be a cost savings to help offset the cost of the full-time offices. Full-time police officers do better police work. They form relationships, they're familiar with the community, the quirks of the town, whether it's the people or the geography. They build trust, and it's just a better way to do police work. I remember the days when you knew who the officer was when he drove by and when he stopped to say hi or ask you, hey guys, how's it going? Rather than today where a lot of time it was, who's that? Or I've never seen that one before. And hopefully when we move to a accredited police department, it'll be easier for us to retain our younger officers rather than having them just get trained and move on to greener pastures. And the DPW has expressed to us that they are okay with their current level of staff. They want to try it and see how it goes. They're down 2 employees for previous levels. It might be 2 or 3. But they feel like they're getting a lot done with the team they have now. They're pretty cohesive. They're willing to stick with the lower number right now, and I'm proud of them for that, being truthful about that. So in a nutshell, yes, I am in favor of
Okay, thank
reinstating.
Mr. Jesperson.
Yes, I think it's very important to return to the higher staffing level and to get the citizen dispatch back on board. There have been times, because of budget cuts, where we have had no officers on patrol. Officers, because of the fact that we do not have the staffing level we would like in the fire department, are often the first responders to any emergency. And I think given the wide geographic area of our town, where it's more than 20 minutes from the island to Byfield, if you have an officer out there and the emergency here, we need to have people ready and able to respond. And so keeping people who we train and having enough of them on staff at any one time that we can get them where they need to be, I think is vitally important. I also look at the lifeguards on the island as a part of getting back to a full safety contingent. It's not part of the staff that is in the budget, but it is one of the things that I would like to see come back to the island, because I think it makes it a safer and happier place for people to have their recreation time. It also hopefully help with the trash issue at Center Island. So in a nutshell, I very much support the idea of moving to a full level of staffing at the police department, and bringing back the citizen dispatch.
Thank you. Lose track here.
New question.
New question.
Ian, did you start the last time, Vinny?
Yes, it's to you, Mr. Colby, I'm sorry. Talk about a decision you made as a selectman that didn't turn out the way you had hoped. And in retrospect, would you have done anything differently?
Yes, Plum Island, trash, and porta johns, for sure. There's been a lot of discussion about it. I've discussed it a lot with residents, members of my board, other officials in town. And there was a lot of going back and forth about it, so we decided to put cans out there in John's, actually a dumpster to be specific. I was in favor of trash cans, but we settled on a dumpster. I was absent for one meeting, and at that meeting, the Board of Health brought the concern to the board that the facilities are being abused. And the decision that night was made to pull the facilities. After the fact, we kept them down there. But I should have screamed a lot louder and a lot longer about just keeping those facilities down there. It's a public place. We deal with it at the farm in busy times. The dumpster gets abused. The porta-johns get abused. These services are never going to be perfect. Out-of-towners come here. They don't respect the facilities, but you have to have them, because if you don't have them, everything hits the ground. So I guess my message to people is I should have fought harder for cans in John's down there, and I intend to in the future. And I think they're an absolute necessity. I really do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jesperson?
I think the decision which has had the biggest ramifications was on the municipal building committee when we decided to incorporate fire into the police and town hall renovation plan that first came up. I think this threw a ton of complication into getting the project moved forward, and I feel like we would be 2 years further ahead had we continued on with the plan that had had years of vetting and that everyone understood in the community. I disagree strongly with Vince about the cost savings of two buildings. It's been shown over and over again that having separate facilities is considerably more expensive, and that there are easy ways to keep police and town hall functions separate while sharing the most important parts of a building that make it expensive. So I think that sometimes changing your mind too quickly when you get new information without having the time to vet it can be very destructive. I think taking a little more time sometimes to make a decision is the better solution rather than jumping when someone throws a new piece of information into the pot.
Thank you. Vincent Russo, the decision you made as a selectman that didn't turn out the way you had hoped.
Well, when we were struggling with trying to meet the budget and provide everything we needed to do, we came up with the idea of the Newbury Improvement Trust. The Newbury Improvement Trust had a committee associated with it, and the Newbury Improvement Trust was structured to allow voluntary charitable contributions from anybody, citizens, non-citizens, people from other towns, or people within our own town. Instead of donating it to another charity, it would have the same tax deductibility as a charitable donation to any bona fide charity. And we drew it up, it was approved, and what I wish I had done to follow through is when we identified a problem like we couldn't afford lifeguards, and we had to give up lifeguards, we should have had an insert in the bill, in the envelope that the real estate bills went in, with it like a coupon, like we desperately need donations to hire lifeguards if you wish to make a voluntary contribution, etc. And put it in with the tax bill, and therefore people who did have the wherewithal to pay extra to the town, we could have perhaps raised enough money to have lifeguards. Right now, I think we could do it to put in cameras to monitor Plum Island Center for the people who have been depositing their dog poo at the center and taking advantage of whatever we do out there. If we had surveillance cameras like the hunters have now in the woods, you have surveillance cameras that are solar powered, and they go on and they record and they transmit, and the police could respond. So, thank you.
Thank you, Damon Jesperson. Question about affordable housing. Should town leaders embrace more affordable housing solutions in town, or take steps to possibly hinder Chapter 40B housing developments, like the one known as Byfield Estates?
I think the town should be proactive in looking for affordable housing and locations for it in town. We've been working with the Merrimack Planning Association to do just that and get some rental units into town. And the reason this is important is that 40B allows a developer to come into our town and ignore our environmental laws, our lot size laws, our road size. They can essentially run roughshod over all of our zoning if we don't get out ahead of them with affordable housing. I think apartments are the best form of affordable housing we can have because they can be dense, they count towards our affordable housing lot, even if they are very nice and expensive. Condos, sadly, don't count towards that at all because they're owned by the individuals who live in them. So I think moving forward with a plan that fits within the master plan, the vision we have for the town to develop some affordable housing, and then thereby prevent developers' ability to say, oh, I'm going to buy that lot, and I don't care what the town says, I don't care what the neighbors say, I'm going to develop the way I want to develop, and to hell with everything else you guys have been trying to build for the last 100 years. So I think it's extremely important that we develop some affordable housing and protect ourselves from the 40B law, because the state has made it impossible for us to resist 40B, and no matter what we do, they're going to do what they want if a developer can get that letter from the state.
Dr. Russo, same question?
Yes, I did not, like my two colleagues, I did not grow up in Newbury. I wasn't fortunate enough to be born. I wish I was born in Newbury. But I grew up in the Bronx, and I know what diversity is. And I think that's something that we need, actually. Diversity, I think, was one of the better parts of growing up in a cosmopolitan area like the Bronx, where I had established from a young age in school and before school in the playgrounds when I was 3 years old, of playing with people of all nationalities, of all shapes and sizes, just like my tie says. So I think that we lack that here, as a matter of fact. We are too homogeneous, but it is a beautiful area as far as the weather, the environment, the convenience, the ocean, the mountains, the cities. Everything is conveniently located. It's a real gem, but I think we should share it with other people. And I agree with Damon that perhaps apartments is the way to go, and get ahead of the 40B people, because like you say, in the long run, they can jeopardize our environment instead of us being in control.
To me, it's less about the diversity. I don't have a problem with any walk of life, male, female, race, sexuality. That doesn't bother me. The problem with 40B is the placement. I found the end of Pearson Drive to put a 40B a very odd place to put a 40B. You're going to put a large cul-de-sac at the end of an older, very large cul-de-sac. It's poor placing. And what it boiled down to is it seemed like the only thing we could really do is sign a letter to recommend to Mass Housing against it, and they can just say, well, this is nice, but we're going to do what we want to do. Not having any low-income housing in town has made it very difficult to resist them. The only thing we can really do is good planning. We need to come together as a community and decide where do we want to put these units, because it's a reality and it's going to happen, and we need to try to find a place for this that's more welcoming than bizarre placement out to Pearson Drive. To have a hearing on something like that and not have a vote makes me furious. It makes me absolutely furious. And to me, it's a joke. Everyone needs a place to live, but you shouldn't be able to put whatever you want wherever you want to put it. That's just, it's not good. It's not good for our taxpayers, and it's not good for the town. It's in everything, I think like you said, everything we've tried to accomplish all these years, all the generations, for someone to just come in and run over you. It's not right. It isn't.
Thank you. Next question to Vincent Russo. This is a question that was sent in to me. Would you like to keep Newbury, meaning a small town, or would you like to bring in different developments that would change the character of the town? I think you sort of answered that, but maybe you can expand on that.
Well, first of all, it wouldn't be my decision, it would be the constituents. We'd have to have a interdisciplinary committee or task force, a group, town meeting discussion, something beyond what my personal opinion would be. But my sense is that if I was in the audience, I would want to preserve the small town atmosphere and population as much as possible, because I think there is a lot of value in a small town. I really do feel like those of you that grew up in this town really benefited from the long-term friendships that you developed. The idea of a community is stronger here. In the Bronx, it had the diversity, but it didn't have the small town atmosphere or the community spirit that you have here. So I really feel like my children did better, but they grew up in Newbury and Newburyport. They did better as far as that goes, but in the long run, I think that you would preserve a small town. That would be my personal opinion, but it wouldn't be my decision.
Same question.
I'm big on the character of the town, but on the other hand, we need some commercial dollars so the tax burden isn't solely on the residents. Well, and the way to do that is carefully form commercial zones, places where these activities are okay, whether it's light manufacturing, repair, solar. There are lots of things that can fit into a commercial package. And we need to keep it neat. We need to stay on focus, decide where we want these things in town, because we don't want to be cramming projects between people's homes, commercial projects between longtime homeowners. It's not right. Or next to a cul-de-sac, we have folks, you have 10 families that have been paying taxes for years, bought a new home in Newbury, made their life here, and now they're faced with something next to them. To me, it's just not right. You know, business activities belong in business areas. I'm big on the character of the town, the farming, the homes, the small businesses. It's all about placement and good planning, and that all starts with the master plan and adhering to it and working with our planning board to make sure these things go the way we want them to.
Yeah, I think, as both JR and Vince said, it's really up to the town to decide what direction the town goes in. And I think in a lot of ways the town has made that clear through the master plan. And I think using the master plan, the input from the Merrimack Regional Planning Authority to find the spots where we can develop some housing so that 40B is not a threat. Hopefully we can encourage more industrial development so that our taxes don't continue to rise every year. Keeping the nature of the town, I think, is vitally important because it's what we have. It's why we all live here. You know, we are a community. We have some great things in this community. We're trying to make them better, and I think we'll get there in the near future and have something we can all really be proud of.
Thank you. Next question to J.R. Colby. If adoption of the Community Preservation Act or a demolition delay bylaw were brought before the town again, where would you stand?
I'm for the Community Preservation Act. I don't think it stands a prayer in this town, to be honest with you. Everyone looks at it as another tax. I look at it as a piggy bank where we can put cents into small amounts of money. And then when something that's meaningful for the town comes up for development, or something we can make an athletic field of, or a lot for a municipal building, we have funds to draw from for that. And I am in favor of the Community Preservation Act. Demolition delay is a sticky one. It shouldn't be too overbearing. I value the old structures in town. I'm big on the local history, but there are property rights. Should there be a delay? Yes. Should it hold people up for 8 months or a year and a half at a time? Absolutely not. There should be a delay though, so a nonprofit or interested parties could potentially step in and save a property or a structure.
Yeah, I was in favor of the CPA when it came before us in the past. I feel like we are already, as a community, paying into the CPA for other communities. So our tax money that goes to the state goes into funding those CPAs, and we get nothing back from it because we decided not to match the funds. So I feel like we are wasting money by not participating in the CPA. We're giving it to other communities so they can preserve their historic sites. we don't have the option for ourselves. As far as the historic delay, we are one of the oldest communities in the state. We have the oldest flag that's continually flying in the world. We are a historic community, and I think taking the time, not making rash decisions around historic entities and buildings is important. We want to preserve the nature of our town and keep it a beautiful, historic place to live. There will be development, there will be new things, but preserving our character is vitally important.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, I have a question. Is the CPA a voluntary participation by the by the individual homeowner, or is it mandatory?
We would have to pass it at town meeting.
No, but if you have a CPA, does everybody have to participate, or do people?
Yes.
Yes.
See, that's the problem. We have a growing part of the community, our seniors, who are retired on fixed income. They have all they can do to keep up with our increasing taxes, and now you want to put, if there was a way of excluding or making it voluntary for those people that were on permanent fixed income, that a means test, then I would be in favor of the CPA, but it would have to be the proviso that you wouldn't punish people who are already struggling, because you're going to drive them out, and it's not fair. If you want to preserve the community, you want to preserve all parts of the community, not just the upwardly mobile young people like yourselves.
Thank you. Next question to Damon Jesperson. What solutions can you offer for additional revenue streams for Newbury, or other ways to resolve budget problems without tax overrides?
Well, it's one of the focuses of a lot of my conversations with our town administrator. One of the things I've done is look for solar and wind development potential in the town. We have two locations where we're exploring right now. One is on the landfill, and the other is at the Mantor Fields. My hope is that we can start to generate some revenue streams through exploring these options. They won't be huge revenue streams. We don't have a huge option for either of these types of development, but I think everything we can do to generate income for the town will be a benefit. The other thing that we have to do is try and generate more business revenue in town. The more business we have along Route 1 or over by the state police barracks, again, any income that is coming from those businesses offsets what the taxpayers, the ratepayers, have to pay each year. So, and I forgot the full gist of the question.
The solutions you can offer for additional revenue streams or other ways to resolve budget problems without tax overrides.
So we have those small streams of revenue. We've also been, as JR mentioned, working with GDA to have them commit more money, since they are a tax exempt part of our town, but have over, if they were taxed, they'd be providing over $600,000 a year in property value. And so getting them to step up to the plate and contribute on an annual basis to offset some of the services that they use is going to be something that we need to do in the future to keep both our town happy and that relationship working well.
Yes. First of all, I'll remind you that I mentioned already the Newbury Improvement Trust. That's one area where you could actually look for voluntary contributions, which amounts almost to a voluntary CPA. So if it was institutionalized and used aggressively, you could have that insert in every single envelope that goes out to every single household with their real estate tax, so that you could actually, if it's done correctly, you could motivate a voluntary CPA through this trust, the Newbury Improvement Trust. And I read in the paper that they found some money in the Newbury Improvement Trust, didn't know what it was for, what to do with it, and the committee had been disbanded. And so I don't know what happened to that money, but that was a very brief article in a recent newspaper. But that's one area. The other thing is, in my travels, I've seen wind turbines in a lot of locations. And we have one in Newburyport, one. The places I've seen wind farms, they have dozens of them. I mean, if it's good for one, it's good for many. And I think we might explore using the marsh for a place where you can't grow anything except good hay, but you can mow around the towers.
There's hay on the marsh, but it's not good.
They used to use salt marsh, but anyway. So anyway, I would like to explore the idea of a wind farm in the marsh. 30 seconds. But then, and basically, the other area in the master plan had along the Parker River, on either side, that there would be a good place for seafood-type restaurants. And you'd have to have on-site sewage, because there is no sewage in that part of Newbury.
Here again, I'm going to go right back to good management and not hiring beyond levels pre-recession. As long as we keep our new full-time hires down and we continue our good management, we won't have to go to overrides to fix budget shortfalls. We haven't in my time in office, and I'm very proud of that. Good management starts from the top down. Newbury has a AA credit rating right now, which is due to our administrator and the current administration all working together as a fine-oiled machine. I don't think we need to go to outlandish measures to pay the bills in town. I think it's all about managing what we have correctly and maintaining the character of the town. And we can develop commercial businesses, but it doesn't have to be on the banks of the river. It doesn't have to be between homes. It can be on Route 1 and other places where these activities are already centered. We can continue to build on that. And I think that is our best course forward.
All right, next question to Vincent Russo. Do you think some or all of free cash should be returned to the taxpayers?
Yes.
You have 2 minutes on it.
It's a yes or no question. The answer is yes.
Okay.
I think, frankly, I think that it does a disservice to the rest of the community to overinflate requests on warrants for projects where a best guesstimate is that you're more than 100% or more than 50%, whatever the standard deviation is, that's acceptable. You shouldn't be more than 1 or 2 standard deviations over or above a request. So if you are, you're doing it in order to create free cash. And a lot of people think free cash is somehow like manna from heaven, but it isn't. So I'm in favor of returning it, yes.
All right, J.R. Cole.
Free cash is the town people's money. And the town people come together at town meeting to appropriate that money. Where free cash comes in, if we go out into a competitive bidding process, which didn't always happen in this town, but when we do that, things come in under bid, that money gets returned to free cash. What that allows your leaders to do, which are elected to represent you by you, is to pay these bills without coming to you for an override every time we need money to pay the bills. It's good management. And free cash is your cash already. Just because it isn't in your bank account doesn't mean it was your money. It came from all you people. And it's there for when unforeseen things come up, so we can cover bills on time, you know, right out of funds we have, instead of, you can't sustain paying the bills by selling town land. It just doesn't work. You're gonna run out of land. So this is, we haven't had a lot of free cash in years past, but it's a result of good management and competitive bidding processes coming in under bid, and that is your money that's being used to pay for maintenance and improvements and services in town. So never feel like free cash is not your money. It is.
Damon Jesperson, same question.
Best management practices mean that we have cash on hand to deal with emergencies. So I feel it's imperative that we keep a significant amount of money there to support our needs as a town. It's all of our money and it's all of our needs. In the past, when we had no free cash, we went every time we needed money, we had to borrow it. We borrowed at exorbitant rates, and that ends up costing every taxpayer more to get less. Having free cash and managing our money well is so much smarter than just saying, oh, we have free cash, it all goes back to the residents, and then, oh, now we had an emergency, we're back before town meeting to beg and borrow money again, and have it at a bad rate, at a bad time, when people have already planned and used that money in their own budgets. If we budget well, and that's what free cash is, then we do both the town and the residents a much better service.
Thank you. Next question to J.R. Colby. What should the town's role be in dealing with the beach erosion on Plum Island and other issues with the Great Marsh?
The town can absolutely stand by the homeowners when they take measures to protect their own homes. Like beach scraping, these other activities. I'm an environmentalist, I appreciate the birds. But we need to find a way to allow these people to protect their homes. At the same time, we're protecting wildlife. You know, these critters, they're not nesting all year, there are seasons, they're doing their things. And the best thing we can do is try to stick by our residents when they're dealing with DEP and other state entities and getting forced to do things and getting regulated to death. The best thing, I think the town does have a role in that, standing by these people and listening to them, and listening to the experts that they bring in and the state sends in, and here again, trying to find a middle ground. So instead of just being stalled and you're watching the beach get eaten up in front of your house and you don't know what's going to happen, you have a little bit of leeway to do something about it. Because I can't imagine the feeling of knowing that your house is going to fall in the water. That has to be the worst feeling in the world, I can only imagine.
Mr. Jesperson?
I think the town does play a role in working with these issues. Not only are we the first liaison between the state and the residents, but we also can do things as we have been doing, which is encouraging erosion studies. You know, I've been out on the island planting native species to try and control erosion and regrow some of our sand dunes to help protect the situation out there. It is our town and it is our job to protect it. That doesn't mean that I think we should allow any resident who wants to just go buy a ton of rocks and dump them, because that may mean that their neighbor's house get washed away instead of theirs. There's a lot that goes into erosion and figuring it out and making sure that we don't inadvertently do more damage than good. But the town has a huge role to play in it, and I think we have a lot of expertise in Chairman Walker, who's here tonight, in looking at how to move forward with protecting the island and the marsh. And I think we will continue to be at the forefront of that.
Russo?
I agree with both all the comments. I will only be repeating everything they said. The only thing I would say is that new construction is, if new construction requires higher pilings in different zones so as to avoid calamities when there is erosion. But as far as I'm concerned, beach scraping done correctly is a good thing. And obviously you can't do it, or you have to do it around the plovers, etc. But the jetties have diminished that that probability in certain ends of the island. The ocean front part of Plum Island is not nearly as eroding nearly as much as it was. Already new homes are being built on sites where previous homes were taken down because of the erosion. Before they fell into the water, they were taken down. And now new homes are on those very same sites. They're practically on the sandbags. So, but the beach is built way up because those jetties were instrumental in causing a lot of the erosion of Plum Island. We've already seen a major turnaround in these last 3 nor'easters we had this winter. Plum Island gained several feet of sand. I've got people complaining, coming down, wondering if they could get a bulldozer to, or a, what do you call it? Excavator, to clear the sand around their doors. So sand is reaccumulating and the jetties are doing their thing. They were built They were built better this time than they ever were built before because we had better heavy-duty construction equipment that was never available before. We had trucks that could go both ways carrying giant boulders. It was a job that I watched them with my binoculars from my house. And they did a magnificent job putting it together, not just dumping rocks. They were put together like a puzzle.
Next question to Damon Jesperson. How do you think the town should handle unfunded long-term liabilities?
Well, I think one of the biggest budget issues we have are unfunded liabilities in our schools. It's a real challenge for the town and for the budget, both in the schools and as that reflects to the towns. We have special education mandates, healthcare mandates in the town, and transportation mandates from the district community, from the district school that have made the budget for the schools go through the roof. And what I've been working on is working with the state legislature to try and get them to actually commit the funds that they are legally bound to give to the community. So an unfunded mandate is, I think, our responsibility is to make the state pay for it because they send it down to us. So we have been in communication with both O'Connor Ives and Bruce Tarr and Lenny Mira and James Kilcourse about moving the state to pay for the Chapter 70 money, the providing the healthcare funds for the in-school nursing. There's a lot that the state should be doing that they are not, and the only thing we can do is tell them to step up to the plate and do their job, because we can't do it for them.
Vincent Russo.
I have nothing to add to that. I agree with it 100%.
J.R.
The best thing we can do is continue to lobby our senators, like Damon said. One thing that gets us into trouble, not to stray off topic a little bit, one thing that gets us into trouble with unfunded mandates is regionalization. The regionalization always bites you in the end because, like say with Triton, the 3 towns started out in the late to mid-70s. They were very similar. As the years go on, we all evolve in different ways. And you know, a lot of the incentives for going regional, you know, one big one was busing, and the state's backed right off on paying for busing. When you get sucked into regionalization, the state almost always backs off on what you're promised, and that's, regionalization should be a warning word when you hear it. It is never a positive in the end. It isn't. So the best thing we can do now that we're stuck with some of these situations is to lobby our senators and lobby the state to do what they told us they were gonna do.
Okay, thank you. Next question to Vincent Russo. How important is the 10-year master plan? And do you think the cost to produce a plan is worthwhile?
Well, we've had the same discussion every 10 years. Every 10 years we've decided it is worthwhile. I think in the past we were accused of having the master plan paying $10,000 for it, and when it was published, just putting it on the shelf. But I know for a fact that it's being used. Sometimes it's not being used in a big open theater. It's being used by individuals. The volumes are available. It's up to the selectmen, the administrator, and the different planning boards to read those manuals, read them, and when they're looking for a solution, to look at the master plan, kind of use it as a reference, know that a lot of the problems have been addressed, a lot of good suggestions, and some suggestions are more like pie in the sky, but it gets you to think outside the box, and it's like having a consultant in between the covers of that book, and so I believe in spending the money for it.
I fully agree with Mr. Russo. I think the master plan is very valuable. It's a map, it's a plan. Just like we try to do with the finances, you've got to have a plan or you don't know where you're going. You have to have it. And the master plan, it's worth every penny, but it's only as valuable as the people that are willing to reference it. It's not worth anything when it's on the shelf, like you said. It has to be used, and I think we've moved to a time and a group of people that values it more and will reference it. And every 10 years or so, you do have to update it because things change and some things become, obsolete or irrelevant. But it's absolutely worth the money, and we need to make sure our leaders are all referring to it when we make these big placement decisions.
Mr. Jesperson?
I concur. It's an important document for the town. One of the things that's most important in our town is the communication between the leadership and the residents. And I think the master plan is one of those forms of communication. They do a ton of work to get input from everyone. There are surveys taken for it. It is a baseline of communication, and I think if we don't have it, as JR said, we lose our roadmap. It serves as a touchstone, as the first touchstone for how we think about the town going forward, and I think it's invaluable.
Another question on the master plan. Mr. Colby, do you think there should be a schedule for implementation of each item in the master plan, and do you think there should be a cost budget for each item?
I don't think there should be a dead set implementation plan. Things change as time goes along. I think it's more of a reference of what to do when. It's more about placement. What was the other part of the question? I'm sorry.
Do you think there should be a schedule for implementation, and should there be a cost budget for each item?
I think things do change too much over the years to project what things are going to cost in 10 years. I think would be very difficult.
Mr. Jesperson?
Yeah, I think having worked on the municipal building committee and seen how quickly the prices change from year to year, having budget line items in the master plan would make it obsolete and laughable within a few years of it being published. So I think budget line items are silly. I think prioritization of items within the plan would be better than a deadline, because I think deadlines don't serve well. But if they say the most important thing to the town are these 3 items, we'd like to focus on those first, because I feel like if the town hits some rough financial times or something like that, and you miss a deadline, suddenly people say, well, do we still do that one, or we move on to the next one on the deadline? I don't think deadlines serve us, but I think a prioritization within the town, within the master plan for the most important projects, the most important things to work on, serves us far better.
Well, all I would say, I agree with everything that's been said, but I would add that if somebody is going to prioritize their suggestions or their recommendations in the master plan, they have to back that up with evidence, not just by the skin of their teeth or the seat of their pants, think that we should do this, this, and this first. But it should be based on evidence from comparables from other communities, obviously, or on some other scientific research. So it's got evidence-based, but I would not put a fiscal note in there, because the economics of every industry is so fragile, so labile, and so unpredictable, and it wouldn't add anything to the master plan, to the value of the plan. So I agree.
Question to Damon Jesperson. You had said, I think either on your website or in a story, that you set a new standard for accountability in town government. How did you do that, and what does that mean?
Well, when I ran the first time, I said that I would show up to every meeting having read all the material and being prepared for each meeting, which I think is the baseline standard to which all selectmen should attain. And so I feel like I know that many of the other selectmen in the past have not read their booklets, have not done their research before showing up to meetings. And so what I mean by that is that I came prepared, I've read the material, I've done the research beforehand on what is coming before us, I've spoken to people, I've spent the time that it takes to be ready for the meeting before it happens. I don't show up and shoot from the hip based on my gut feeling at the time. I do the homework beforehand.
Dr. Russo, the same question. What do you see as the standard for accountability? How is the Board of Selectmen accountable in town government?
Well, the accountability revolves around being prepared, obviously, as already said, but also you have to show up to the meetings. Your attendance has to be virtually something that would be gold standard would be to have 100% attendance. But that's obviously not in the cards. When we had 3 selectmen, you still had a quorum with 2 selectmen, so occasionally one selectman could miss a meeting. But as JR said about the toilets and the trash barrels, etc., he missed one meeting and it was gone. It seems to me like that's one of the reasons probably why Newburyport has 2 readings on everything. So just because you miss one meeting, the world doesn't end, especially if the person who was responsible for that effort can't be there for some reason, a family emergency or whatever. It should be tabled for the next meeting. If you meet every 2 weeks, I couldn't see any reason why they did that.
Mr. Colby? Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sometimes being an accountable leader means holding people accountable when they do things wrong, or making everyone pay their taxes instead of just select few. The days in this town when, oh, my cousin so-and-so, they can make all this go away, those days are over. There's a new sheriff in town now, and there's a lot of people happy about it. There are some people that are unhappy about it, but it's a cleaner way to do things. The rules are the same for everybody, and to me, that is accountability.
Okay. Mr. Russo, question for you. Kind of a basic question. Why should voters choose you over these other 2 guys?
I think time is on their side, and if the town wants to take advantage of my experience, this is a window of opportunity. Whereas these gentlemen will be around for a lot of years. I mean, I can remember when they were born. I was already a very successful surgeon when they were born, so I have a good feeling that they'll be around for a long time. So this is like my signs say, experience matters. It's just talking about the fact that I think I have an experience that would benefit the town. I've been about service my entire life. I was in the Army, I was in the Navy, I was at the city hospital, I trained as a general surgeon, I worked in emergency rooms, operating room, cancer clinics. Trauma and cancer was primarily what I did. It's all about service, so I think that it helped train me to approach problems from a root cause analysis point of view. So anytime there's a problem, I do an RCA, and I figure out what the root cause of that problem is. And that's the evidence that on which you base and build your solutions. So I have that experience. I mentioned how briefly in that 30 seconds that I had in Village was that when I was initially a selectman in the beginning, the town was on the verge of really defaulting. And when you default, the state takes over the town, and the state comes in and runs it for you. And we dodged that bullet by rapid action as to root cause. And one of the big things we did was we changed the tax collector and treasurer to an appointed position rather than an elected position. And that made for increased fiscal responsibilities and efficiencies.
Colby, same question.
I think all you have to do is look at the last 2 years. Look at what we've come. We've tackled projects that have lingered in town for years. We found solutions that can work for most of the people in town. All our boards and committees are operating at a very high level. We can disagree, but we can still communicate. Unlike national politics, politics in Newbury isn't stalled. We can work through things. We can listen to the voters. And that's so rare nowadays. If we change a part of that recipe right now, we're gonna go backwards. And when you think about the way things were, I don't want to go backwards. When you look at the progress we've made in 2 years, I think we finally come to a place that works. Our board is very diverse right now. And all 5 of us are very different. And I think we all bring something important to the table, even though me and this guy disagree once in a while. I appreciate this long-term, looking down the road approach, because sometimes I can get sucked into the now. You know what I mean? Alicia's so strong with the schools. You know, Jeff and Truck, they bring a lot of experience. You know, Jeff, you know, with his marsh work, just street sense. Chuck here again, you know, he's got a feel for Byfield and the people over in this side of town, and he's strong on the roads. We have a diverse board that works so well right now, and I think breaking that now would be a big mistake.
Mr. Jesperson.
I agree with what JR said. I feel like the board is working very well, the town government is working very well. We're starting to tackle some of the problems that have faced us for decades. And I don't see why we would want to change back or move away from the solutions that we're coming to. We have big projects ahead of us, but we've already gotten past some of the major hurdles which have daunted the town for decades. So I feel like we are making progress. We have a good board, we have a good town administrator, we are following our laws. We have prosecuted a bunch of corruption. The government of this town is serving its people really well, and I want to continue to see it do so.
Thank you. One more question for the three of you, and then you'll each get to ask a question of somebody else. Mr. Colby, how would you address the tensions in town between the need for development and the desire for agricultural and historical preservation?
I think right back again, we need to figure out what districts we're going to develop. You don't want everything everywhere. Here again, our Route 1 corridor, it's really taken shape in the last 3 or 4 years. Things are changing out there. We are building a business district. It doesn't happen overnight, but we need to make sure these things stay in the right areas, because what you don't want are these activities to affect homeowners, affect their house values, their quality of life, or what they expected when they looked at the zoning in their neighborhood when they bought a home in this town. I think people deserve to trust the zoning and their leaders to keep different property uses with their respective property uses, instead of just spreading it around. And I think if we continue to do that, the rest of the pieces will fall into place.
Thank you. Mr. Jesperson.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We have a master plan. It lays out in broad strokes how and where development should happen inside of our town. We don't want industry on top of houses. Agriculture is going to be a part of our town for a long time. You know, we have the Greenbelt now helping us preserve land, keeping open spaces. I think we have a good plan as far as how to preserve this community in its sort of nature, its structure, and the way it has worked for a long time. You know, the more development we have of businesses along that corridor, the better. But I think preserving where we have houses, where we have farms, is vitally important. I don't want to see every farm in town become a housing development. I think that's kind of awful.
Same question, Dr. Russo.
Okay, I agree 100%. I think that maybe one of the things we need to do is increase the reward to the farmers who do surrender the development rights. That lowers their taxes, so the farm is preserved as a farm in perpetuity. If they're not rewarded with a significant amount of money, someone else can still come in, pay back that reward to them in the sale. We figure it as the cost of doing business to put in a bunch of homes in a subdivision. So I really think we need to take a look at how much we're rewarding the farmer for foregoing his development rights. So if it's significant enough money, it would make it financially untenable for somebody to come in and retroactively take it out of the farm situation, and then they can build a monstrosity houses.
Thank you. Now, Damon Jesperson, you can ask a question to either of the other two gentlemen.
Vince, when we were on the tour of the Salisbury Police Station, you made a comment to Chief Fowler about the electrical room. You said this would be a good place for a love nest. That seemed extremely inappropriate to me, and I was wondering if you had a personal relationship with him, or you could explain that comment and where that came from.
Well, if you read the papers, it happens, it was more meant in jest, but the point was many a truth is said in jest. And I have seen in my travels, in the Navy, in the Army, and without getting into any details about what the significant incidents were, it happens.
Right. Vincent Russo, you get a chance to ask a question to anyone else?
Sure. I didn't hear anybody mention lifeguards on Plum Island.
Needs to be to one of these individuals.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
All right, I'll ask Dan. When we had to omit lifeguards on Plum Island, the idea was that we could have them just at the center or the areas of the beach that get the most crowded. But the prevailing wisdom was all or nothing. Either you have lifeguards or you don't have lifeguards. Otherwise, you're sending a mixed message to the tourists. What we forgot about was the fact that Newburyport has lifeguards. So when tourists come here and pay $12 to park in Newburyport, and they start walking the beach, they don't know when they've crossed into Newbury, no man's land. So what would you advise we do? Because I think we have a liability.
We've been looking at the lifeguard issue for a while, and I have mentioned bringing them back. I believe it's important to develop something on Plum Island. The first thought that we've tried and floated out to the residents is a paid parking, which would allow us to, where the town would own a lot with paid parking and permanent bathrooms that would fund bringing lifeguards back to the island. Because I feel like it is important to have that safety feature on the island. The residents have spoken extensively about desiring it, but I also feel like it needs to be a revenue neutral solution. I don't feel like at this current budget we need to be adding things in either an override or cutting other services to bring back a different service. So my hope is that we can find a solution that is revenue neutral on the island and support full-time lifeguards out there during the heavy summer season.
Thank you. J.R. Colton?
Okay, my question's for Dr. Russo. The town has a AA credit rating. Our boards and committees are operating at a very high level. You even said we're all rowing in the right direction. So what are the big problems with this administration?
Well, go back to what my original statement was. The reason why I decided to run was I thought that you didn't really have a good hand, a good finger on the pulse of the community when you tried to do the $11.5 million override on successive occasions. No, no, and it was over the top, and it was against the motto of just enough. It was, and also it was. I still disagree that you think that you can share an elevator in town hall with prisoners and police. You can't do that, and you can't predict when somebody in a wheelchair is going to need the elevator, and somebody who's being brought to court is in handcuffs coming down in the elevator. You can't have. You can save money and combine them and build them, but it won't function very well. And we had the opportunity, and we are going to build a standalone police station, so that's not even an issue anymore.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Now we go to the closings. Each of the candidates gets 2 minutes, and we go in reverse order, and we'll start with Vincent Russo.
Oh. Well, I think I'll start right away. I just wanted to run down some of the things that I did in my life that I bring to the table, because everything you do in life adds to your confidence. So one of the things I have here is under my vision business, the police station, town hall, Triton High School. I haven't heard too much about Triton High School, but I remember when Triton High School opened, it was about 1970, 71 when it opened. And you know, the first headmaster they hired there turned out to be a fraud. And they had to let him go. I don't know if he went to jail or what, but he had fraudulent credentials. So I was around when Triton opened. Now it's getting old, obviously, since it's 50 years old pretty soon. It'll need some significant repairs. And we need to assess whatever the repairs that the school committee and the building and grounds committee think needs to be done. This would be the time to start budgeting for it ahead of time, like you say, plan ahead instead of. Then a walking club. A walking club is something that is very popular in Europe. And now that we have the rails to trails coming down to our neck of the woods, we ought to be able to use the walking clubs are a little bit more organized than just going out for a walk. And it stimulates people to actually do it, because you get a little, like a bank book, records all your trips. So you have it documented on each trip. It doesn't cost any money. And the Merrimack River Beach Alliance is an ongoing function. I was one of the founding members of the Merrimack River Beach Alliance. Our primary effort was to get the federal government to pay for the jetties. And at first we weren't getting anywhere until we formed the MRBA and got everybody around the table at the same time, including the Army Corps of Engineers, including coastal zone management, selectmen, mayors, and town administrators. And lo and behold, the government started listening to us, and they spent over $30 million rebuilding those jetties for us, and we didn't have to pay for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Russo. J.R. Colby, 2 minutes.
I'm going to keep it short. I think I've addressed most of the issues, most of the things I'm proud of that this board has accomplished in the last 2 years. I just urge all of you, let's keep moving forward. I think the 2 candidates' meets today have shown the difference between the new and the old. Experience can be a good thing. Fortunately for us, our board already possesses that. Keep moving forward. There's a new sheriff in town. I think everyone sees that. Whether you love it or you hate it, that's up to you. But just keep moving forward. We're making progress. Our boards and committees are operating at a very high level. We're communicating with the voters the best we can. And that's so rare today. If you have a government that's functioning, keep it going. And go Celtics.
David Jesperson.
But first I want to thank Mary and Richard for hosting us here today in the library, and thank all of you for coming out. I think it's great to have this much participation in our process, and I'm glad to be able to speak to everyone. I hope to be able to continue to serve my community. I intend to be here for the rest of my life, and I want to be in a town that I can be very proud of. I think we're making great strides as a community. Things are getting better and better in this town. You know, when I was in an elementary school, we knew that only the Pearsons could put a tin roof in town. I didn't know what that meant, but it was a joke that we told each other. You know, that is no longer the town we have. We've moved considerably towards doing things the right way, not doing things the super cheap way that costs more every year. So I want to make sure we move this town forward, we build things we can be proud of, and we live in a community that is beneficial to each and every one of us. Thank you very much.
Just real quick, I think I get 10 minutes closing on this. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, everybody who will be watching this repeatedly, I'm sure, on Channel 9 and on the website. It's fantastic to see so many people interested in an important selectmen's race like this. I want to thank J.R. Colby, Damon Jesperson, and Vincent Russo for the time they're putting in to run campaigns and the commitment that it takes to be a candidate. And thank you all.